I just wanted to see if he had any of the Appalachian ones. So the claims of Portuguese ancestry were likely a ruse in order to remain free and retain other privileges that came with being considered white, according to the study's authors. The study quotes from an 1874 court case in Tennessee in which a Melungeon woman's inheritance was challenged. If Martha Zimmerman were found to have African blood, she would lose her inheritance. Hi, I'm Danielle Romero. Thank you so much for being with me here on my channel. We've been delving into American identity and family stories and what does it mean to be an American. And I've been doing a little bit of work on Melungeon heritage. I had planned on interviewing some folks about it. Then we got COVID here at our house, and I'm still kind of on the upswing. Still drinking tea instead of coffee, which is not like me at all. But that being said, I can talk to you from here in my office and not worry about being sick. So I wanted to show you some DNA tests I found for folks who are wondering if they have Melungeon ancestry or who have the paper trail of last names that are familiar for those in that community. Now, I only recently realized I have a lot of family members, a lot of lineage that looks like it is part of the Melungeon community. And if you're not familiar with what Melungeon is, it's kind of similar to Redbone. There are differences, which I'm planning on talking about in another video. But it is this isolated, triracial, for the most part, community. And it's in, I used to say Appalachian because I'm from New York. But I've had a few people tell me that's totally wrong, and I think it's Appalachia. Now that I'm thinking about it, I don't know if I can remember how I'm supposed to say it. Appalachia. I think it's Appalachian. I'm going to get it. But that being said, I want to show you some of the DNA tests that I found. And on Reddit, people will share their tests on 23andMe, on Ancestry DNA. Super interesting. I love when people share their results like this. But there's always this caveat of the tests change so much, at least they did for me, that I feel like the numbers in some contexts are worthless. Now I know they're not really worthless, but you don't want to put like all of your everything, all of your eggs in this basket of the percentages that you see. That being said, I want to share a couple of these with you. So I'm going to switch over to the screen sharing view so we can talk about it. Okay, so this one's called Do I Have Melungeon Ancestry? It's from 2 months ago. And this person says, I'm pretty interested to know if I may have Melungeon in me. Most of my family has lived in northern Alabama and southern northeast Tennessee for many years, with many of them having roots in Virginia and North Carolina. So these are some of the like touch points for this community. And through research, some of my ancestors were free mixed people who are of Irish descent who lived in Huntsville, Alabama, which I think is technically part of the Appalachian. So they're kind of looking for hints in their DNA. Now, I don't see any last names on this post. And there's another post I'm going to show you that people did bring up their family names, which is very helpful. So this person's test, it had 82% sub-Saharan African with a high Nigerian. Just as an aside, when I was doing some research on my Creole side, I saw that a lot of Creole people will have high Benin and Togo and Nigeria, which my family does. Like those are the areas that were the highest for African. So that was interesting too, because we do have to take into consideration a lot of this African DNA, if not all of it, is coming from enslaved people, and enslaved people were brought from different parts of Africa to different parts of the United States, and you will see concentrations of that history in DNA. So a lot of sub-Saharan African, European, Portuguese, not high Portuguese. I shared in another video that I have like 6% Portuguese, which I always wrote off as really being Spanish, but that seems to be a history of the Appalachian area. And then this person has some Filipino, but sometimes the Native American can be hidden as Asian. So here's the results. And so this person had responded and said, great question. I'm of Melungeon descent myself. Whether or not you have Melungeon ancestry is actually not something you can derive from only a DNA test. This is true. And I would even say any of these groups like Creole or Puerto Rican even, because my husband has Puerto Rican ancestry, and it doesn't necessarily show up as an ethnic breakdown. It might be a community where they're saying a lot of people in this Puerto Rican community have similar DNA. But I haven't seen a Melungeon community. So let me know if you've seen that on one of these tests. There are no Melungeon genes, and everyone who is mixed in Appalachia is not Melungeon. Rather, Melungeon refers to a certain set of mixed race families in the region who have a particular history to early colonial Virginia. So how do you figure out if you're Melungeon, they ask. It sounds like you already know you have family in Appalachia. That's a good start. So I just absolutely love this tying into the colonial Virginian history. And I really want to go down this path with you guys. I think it'd be really interesting to do that. So now I want to show you an article that I saw a couple months ago, and then my friend Dan Schneider had mentioned it to me again. And it's a DNA study about the Appalachian Melungeons. And the title of it is "A Whole Lot of People Upset About This Study." I think when scientists start delving in, probing, scientifically probing into communities, trying to get definitive answers, I think we realize that they butt up against some stuff. There are cultural things that sometimes I think can contradict the DNA indicators, where people are a part of a community, they're part of a culture, but maybe their DNA is not reflecting what we would expect from that. And I'm guessing that's something that happened here. But I was really excited about this because one of the men who did the project, he is a Goins, which I have in my family line. My maternal line is Goins. So I wanted to read part of this article too, and let's talk a little bit about this DNA. For years, varied and sometimes wild claims have been made about the origins of a group of dark-skinned Appalachian residents, once known derisively as the Melungeons. Some speculated they were descended from the Portuguese explorers, or perhaps from Turkish slaves or gypsies. Now, I'm pretty sure gypsies is not a thing that that group prefers. I think they like to call themselves the Romani, I think. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's what I've been told. Now, a new DNA study in the Journal of Genetic Genealogy attempts to separate truth from oral tradition and wishful thinking. So here's the issue, right? Like there may be some truth to what's about to be revealed here, but it also doesn't negate the fact that for generations, groups of people have been identifying a certain way, or they've had this oral tradition, and I think that there's some validity to that as well. The study found the truth to be somewhat less exotic. Genetic evidence shows that the families historically called Melungeons are the offspring of sub-Saharan African men and white women of Northern or Central European origin. So it's a peer-reviewed journal, but it doesn't sit comfortably with some people who claim Melungeon ancestry. Quote, there were a whole lot of people upset by this study, lead researcher Roberto Estes said. They just knew they were Portuguese or Native American. And here's Jack Goins. So I'm assuming I'm related to him. The Goins family is, I think, probably all from one line, and they split. So beginning in the early 1800s, or possibly before, the term Melungeon was applied as a slur to about 40 families along the Tennessee-Virginia border. But it has become a catch-all phrase for a number of groups of mysterious mixed-race ancestry. Now, what's interesting to me is this idea of like, it's been so mysterious, and then to come in and say, oh, well, actually, they're just mixed with African and European. It doesn't really seem very mysterious. I feel like you would know that is the mixing. But what I'm guessing is something that I hope to talk about in the future, but this idea of the multi-generational mixed person. And I think that is how I would look at my family, because we're not looking at people who were just 50% European of some kind, 50% from some African country. But these are people that have been mixed for a long time, marrying other people who've been mixed for a long time. And I think it just comes out a little bit differently when it is these multi-generational experiences of being mixed people. So in recent decades, interest in the origin of Melungeons has risen dramatically, um, which of course, people could take DNA tests now and we can kind of solve these family questions. All of us are multiracial, says a sociologist in California. It's recapturing a more authentic U.S. history. I could not agree more. So the claims of Portuguese ancestry were likely a ruse in order to remain free and retain other privileges that came with being considered white, according to the study's authors. So the study quotes from an 1874 court case in Tennessee in which a Melungeon woman's inheritance was challenged. If Martha Zimmerman were found to have African blood, she would lose her inheritance. So this is not an unusual situation. We've talked a lot on the channel about the court cases here in the United States, mostly Supreme Court cases, of needing to prove your ancestry, needing to prove your lineage so that you can either become a citizen or you're eligible for inheritance or what have you. Her attorney, Louis Shepard, argued successfully that Zimmerman's family was descended from the ancient Phoenicians who eventually migrated to Portugal and then to North America. And writing about his argument in a memoir published years later, Shepard stated, quote, "Our southern hybrid people will never tolerate on equal terms any person who is even remotely tainted with Negro blood. But they do not make the same objection to other brown or dark-skinned people, like the Spanish, the Cubans, the Italians, etc." Now, in another lawsuit in 1855, so this is predating the Civil War, Jacob Perkins, who is described as a, quote, East Tennessean of a Melungeon family, sued a man who accused him of having Negro blood. In a note to his attorney, Perkins wrote why he felt the accusation was damaging. Writing in an era of slavery ahead of the Civil War, Perkins noted that the racial discrimination of the age was, quote, "First, the words imply that we are liable to be indicted, liable to be whipped, equals liable to be fined." So he's saying that the accusation of having African heritage means that you're well on your way to being enslaved. And this fear and this concern of being lumped in with this group of people who are enslaved, who are being treated as less than, as other, was a real tangible fear for many mixed race people. So Jack Goins, now here he is. I don't know if he's still alive. I would love to get in touch with him. He researched Melungeon history for about 40 years, and he was the driving force behind the DNA study. And he said that his distant relatives were listed as Portuguese on an 1880 census. But he was taken aback when he first had his DNA tested around 2000. So it surprised me so much when mine came up African that I had it done again, he said. I had to have a second opinion, but it came back the same way. I had 3 done, and they were all the same. So they were working to define who is Melungeon and what does it mean if you identify as Melungeon, what would your DNA say about you? And so I'm not going to read all of this, but I feel like this last part is what I've really been looking at. It says Goins estimates that there must be several thousands of descendants of the historical Melungeons alive today, but the study only examined unbroken male and female lines. So that is to say, people like me who, my family didn't just stay in the Melungeon community, married all different kinds of folks from all around the world, and so we wouldn't be a good representative necessarily of this. But I thought it was absolutely fascinating to see this tension when DNA tests kind of come and put a microscope on communities and kind of try to parse apart their story about who they are. So I want to show you one other DNA test. Okay, so this is from 1 year ago, and it says DNA test results suspecting I might have a Melungeon ancestor. I'll post my grandfather's results at the end. So this one is an ancestry DNA test, and I know that because of the communities, which I love this part of the test. And it says early Virginia African Americans, Appalachian settlers of Kentucky, Louisiana Creoles and African Americans. This looks like it's probably I feel like this is my test. Virginia and Eastern Kentucky settlers. Okay, so they're including the communities here. And these are some of the communities that are known for Melungeon families. And the test England, Northwestern Europe, Nigeria, Mali, Ivory Coast and Ghana, Ireland, Eastern Europe, Russia, Northern Italy, Benin and Togo. And I think that's from the Creole side. Norway, Cameroon, Finland, Baltic, Senegal, Indigenous North America, Scotland. Okay, and this is their grandpa's test. Okay, so I think that it would be really interesting if you have taken one of these tests to check your communities. And I actually want to log in and check my grandmother's brother's communities. So I'm going to go over and do that right now. Okay, so this is my grandmother's brother, my great uncle Danny. He talked for me. He talked with me on the Finding Lola series. Let me see these communities. Okay, here are my communities. These are my great uncle's communities. I just wanted to see if he had any of the Appalachian ones. Coahuila, Greater San Antonio, Nacogdoches. Okay, Ulster, Ireland, Munster Island. Okay, Scotland, early Louisiana Creoles and African Americans, East Central Louisiana Acadians, South and Central Louisiana. Okay, so we have a lot of Creole. Western Gulf State settlers. Could that be Appalachian? I'm not sure if I'm super familiar with this. Let me know. Let me know if that is something that could be Appalachian. And what's interesting is that family members from the same side have different communities showing up. It's not all the same. And I don't know why that is. It's just the luck of the draw, I guess. Okay, so I don't see any Melungeon communities on here, but maybe I'm missing something. Maybe we just don't have enough of a connection. I do see a lot of Creole communities, though, which is good because I know that one's real. So let me know what you think about these DNA tests and what you think about the DNA work they're doing on the Melungeon community. I would be interested in joining one. So yeah, let me know what you think about that. And as soon as I'm better, I'm gonna get back in touch with some people so I could bring them on to interview, and we will talk soon.